Next question. And we'll be starting with it this time. Under what circumstances would you support legalized casino gambling in Massachusetts?
The circumstances are that it's going to legalize casinos, resort casinos in Massachusetts is one of my top topics. It's going to bring in 5,000 construction jobs immediately. It's going to create 10 to 15,000 permanent jobs with benefits between with salaries between 30 and 50,000 a year with benefits. These are great opportunities. It's going to people are standing in line with $3 billion in the private sector. This is a gimme. This is not an either or. This is a gimme. It gives us the opportunity to have great jobs. It gives us the opportunity to have between $350 million to $450 million a year in local aid. How can we say no to this? We can't say no to this. And it's going to bring in, into the private sector, $3 billion. How can we say no to this? This is the low-lying fruit. We have to grab at this. It gives us the opportunity to have in the private sector, then to go forth with biotech, the biotech industry, to create taxes and monies for the biotech industry. We heard Dan say $1 billion, but really, in reality, it's over a period of 10 years. It's $100 million a year, and it's at Fort Devens. And they walked into Fort Devens with pre-permitting and created numerous jobs. The whole thing about is creating jobs and keeping these jobs in the state of Massachusetts. That's what, as the reality of things that we really have to look forward to.
Carolyn?
Casino gambling has come up much more frequently in this campaign season than I would have thought, actually. I have been pretty vocal in the position of not being a supporter of casino gambling. I think there are a lot of factors that go into this. I guess, you look at the finances, which are all estimates. You look at the impact on communities. The reason I joined this race to begin with is because I feel that strong communities are absolutely critical to raising strong families. I think we all know that. I don't think that communities or that casinos really benefit those communities in which they are placed. I've looked at the numbers. I would continue to look at the numbers if a casino, proposal were to come up again. I really feel that all things considered, there would be very few instances in which I could wholeheartedly support a casino program. In fact, I'm not sure there are any. But again, always have an open mind. But I would rather take the same energy, the same resources, and the same creativity that would otherwise be put into this type of proposal and look at real economic development opportunities such as we find here in MetroWest and support them with infrastructure and transportation.
Yeah.
My position on casinos is very similar to Carolyn's. We both obviously differ from Ed on this issue. The numbers that Ed reels off are estimates, and they're estimates that have their origin with a casino developers lobbying group, which isn't to say they're false, but is to say that they should be viewed with the same sort of skepticism we might give the effects of smoking estimates from cigarette companies. I do not believe you can save our budget with casinos, and that's the way this came up last year. There was a huge hole in the budget that needed to be plugged, and so all of a sudden we're going to have casinos all over the state. I think that's a faulty process. It's a faulty premise. There's no support for the notion that allowing resort casinos can save a state budget over the long term. If you look at states that have done it, they tend to spend the money and end up back in the same hole later on. And more to the point, the numbers that Ed cites presume that there is some unlimited base of people out there to fill an unlimited number of resort casinos throughout the region. The big casinos in Connecticut just last month issued reports on their recent results, and they're down. They're hurting. They have lower patronage. They're not filling up the way they used to. There's no reason to believe if we erect a whole bunch of major resort casinos, the people are going to come from, I don't know where to fill them up. and flesh out the numbers that Ed recites. But more to the point, I agree with Carolyn. I don't think that casinos make for healthy communities. I think they would fundamentally change the nature of the areas where they're sited, and I certainly don't think it's the sort of thing that ought to be pushed through in a rush the way there was an effort to push it through this last session with this notion that we're going to solve all of our problems by putting up some resort casinos.
Thank you. We have time, I believe, for one more question, and
We can have a couple more because we started late.
okay. Do any more questions out here in the audience? You thinking? Let me suggest this one then. And Carolyn, this will be Carolyn's first. Question 1 on the November ballot calls for the repeal of the state income tax. If voters approve it, will you consider it a binding mandate or an expression of voter opinion? And what is the appropriate legislative response to such a vote? I'm not asking, do you favor it or do you not favor it? I'm asking, what do you do if it passes?
I believe as an elected official, my final and only duty is to the voters in my district. I think it would be my job as a representative to fully communicate the implications and understand the implications on local property taxes, on fees, on level of local services that we could provide, and frankly, to represent the interests of the voters in the district. This issue has come up a number of times in speaking with voters, and my sense right now is that the voters in the 8th Middlesex are not supporting this initiative. They understand that it just means more of the same difficulties that we've already been facing, especially with schools and providing local services.
No, I could not disagree with that position more. The ballot initiative is a constitutional mechanism in this state. And what Carolyn just said conflates the role of the legislature and the role of the voter. It puts the legislature above the voter. If this ballot initiative passes, it has the force of law. There is no income tax in Massachusetts. Now, the last time a similar ballot initiative passed in 2000, that rolled income tax rates back to 5%. That was law. And the legislature does not have a role in evaluating whether that is an intelligent decision on the part of the voters. They don't get a veto. But what they did in 2000 was they just passed another law to say that law you voters just passed, that's no longer the law. I frankly, at the time, was astounded, and in many ways I'm still astounded that there wasn't more of a backlash to that, because that initiative passed with 56-some-odd%. It was a healthy majority. And the legislature literally stuck its thumb in the eye of the voters and said, no, 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 we know better than you do. Now, again, as you said in asking the question, that doesn't necessarily go to the merits, but the question was, what would you do? And frankly, if I'm in the legislature, I will respect the will of the voters, as I am bound to do, and set about making sure that whatever system is put in place for the income tax here doesn't put us in a worse situation than we're in right now. But as to whether we respect the will of the voters, that's not a question. It's not a question for us. We don't get to decide that, or we shouldn't in our constitutional democracy.